When I have to describe the reality of what black youth are facing today, it's a very somber picture.
I used to tell my boys, be careful, be safe. And one of them told me, Mom, I'm never safe. And that was such a sobering moment.
The reality that black youth are facing today is police brutality. It's something that our children have to be aware of and act accordingly.
You can walk out your door today and through no fault of your own, through no fault of anything, that your life can be ended or altered.
Higher rates of recidivism and within the prison system, black youth are facing harsher punishments. They are within schools, its consequences within the judicial system.
So that's a harsh reality. But then we must sit down and have conversations with our children as to how can we overcome that.
The reality that black youth are facing today is a hard working reality.
The idea that depending on where they are, that they don't matter. The fact that we have to have a movement that said Black Lives Matter, to me, is indicative of the reality of their existence.
Black youth are having a critical time in being able to identify themselves and define positive things, positive images of what it really means to be black.
We are looking at an America that still thinks that we are less than. We are looking at an America that thinks that maybe even the world would be better if we got rid of all our black youth.
In order to achieve things, they're going to have to work extra hard to get there, because society as a whole does not accept black people.
Some of the things that are stunting the progress for black students include community involvement in the schools.
It's important to see positive images and role models.
I believe standardized testing is stunting progress for black students. I agree that testing is necessary to a degree, but when the things on the test have nothing to do with the reality of a black student, then I don't believe that is a fair assessment.
We only get past issues of race when people in power or those with power refuse to let race be the part of the conversation.
I think sometimes we limit ourselves.
We set our own barriers. And I absolutely agree that racism is still very much so alive, but I think sometimes we rest on that in a way that's very dangerous. And so we say, well, I can't do this, or I can't achieve this goal, or this is going to be hard. Well, why don't you try it?
Are schools ensuring equal outcomes for students despite race? Now, unfortunately, the answer is no. We know that the public schools right now are probably as segregated, if not more so, than they were in the 1950s and 60s, pre-segregation.
They say that they're giving everyone the same materials and things, but
I think schools have a long way to go in being able to provide the same resources across the school districts, across cities, across states.
We're looking at pre-K and preschool, I'm looking at higher ed. I think that it sounds altruistic and highly optimistic to think that schools are actively looking at ways to really reduce the inequality and inequities.
And the schools who have been really successful with it have in fact taken the time to realize that it's not just about what the students are doing in the classroom. The students have to feel safe.
If you're not consistently getting to know your students and spending time with your students and building trust with your students, how do you then create interventions that are going to support them? And even if that word outside of the school is racist and sexist and homophobic, they've had the roots and had some of those opportunities to kind of understand confidence and how to deal with that. Whereas if you feel downtrodden at school and you walk into a society that's also downtrodden, your ability to adjust to that's going to be a little bit harder.
Black students are punished more severely in more cases, more frequently in schools, and it almost is a self-fulfilling prophecy that society is instilling in you, you're a problem, you are negative.
There's so many messages they're receiving that says like you are less than, you can't, you won't.
but we don't take the time to really figure out what's going on with students, and we blame students for their own failures when we don't want to understand and don't want to take into account that systemic racism is so much of a fabric of a part of our American education system.
Many black males are being looked at in the 2nd and 3rd grade, and if they're reading on level, then okay. Not great, but just okay. If they're not reading on level, let's count them in the census for why we need another prison.
And sometimes it is the bright student, the bright black student or student of color, who is very capable but not given the support and encouragement.
Their outside environment affects how they do in school. A lot of students go home and then they are the parent. They have to care for younger children. They have to deal with a lot of things that most children should not have to deal with.
When you're able to show them opportunity and you're able to show them possibilities, to me that's a gift that keeps on giving. And where students are reaffirmed, they go into that world of inequity with more optimism and more grit and more resilience.
Educational inequality is definitely something that our black children are facing today. And it's mainly because we have a lot of teachers who don't understand the proper way to teach children on different levels, from different cultures, from different backgrounds, with different learning styles.
Schools are no longer have the time or the resources to teach simple socialization or communication skills. We're so focused at this point on teaching to the test that we are not having an opportunity to teach basic fundamentals of how to succeed outside of class.
If we teach young children life skills in school, meaning how to be proactive, how to synergize, how to live a balanced life, then it will in turn affect how they are outside of school and in society.
A lot of times that curriculum stifles imagination and creativity. And so as they continue to grow and they get to middle school and high school and even college, they've learned to box themselves, and they've learned to, honestly, to learn to take a test.
Some of the challenges that black students face that come from their teachers and or the educational system as a whole is, again, the idea of profiling or the idea of labeling.
When it comes to educating black students, a lot of white teachers do not believe that they can do what more white children can do, and so they do set lower expectations.
I think there's a cultural divide, and I think there's an atmosphere in this country now that it's okay to mistreat certain people or certain behaviors.
The staff that is hired and within those schools is also really important too. So what messages are students getting by the teachers, by the way they grade, by the music they choose, by the lessons they choose?
You've got really great teachers in these communities who traditionally have gone for all the right reasons, but the system just beats them down.
Because of the constraints that schools and teachers are under, those influences negatively impact how black youth are able to receive information that is being presented to them in the classroom.
I get that there's inequity based on property taxes in schools and school redistricting, the amount of money that PTAs have, but I think when students feel valued, that they're going to flourish.
The place for black youth has been kind of ascribed to the sidelines because no one has great expectations for these groups.
History absolutely bears some sense of what matters and where people fit in.
The mainstream media uses its power in a negative way against African Americans.
Social media is shaping the ideas and norms of our black children.
How they perceive themselves based off of these standards that are set in media and print magazines of how they should look. And if they don't look like that, then they think lesser of themselves.
What are the messages that are being reaffirmed in the media, in music? What music are our kids listening to? And how does that really set the tone for their sense of developing worth?
Watch an hour of mainstream television, and what do you see?
we are very apt to show our children successful athletes, successful rappers, successful artists, as opposed to successful doctors, successful entrepreneurs.
Unfortunately, society itself is shaping the norms and perceptions of African American people, and so we have to adapt based off how society views us.